The rain hammered against the concrete like bullets, each drop a reminder of how far Amara Lee had fallen. She stood outside the crowded Koreatown cafe in Los Angeles, her sister's words still echoing in her mind. "I can't help you. I have my own life to manage." The woman she had adored her whole life had just walked away, leaving her with nothing but the clothes on her back and a heart that felt like shattered glass. People rushed past without glancing at her, another invisible soul drowning in the city's indifference. Her ex-boyfriend's dismissive voice haunted her. "You're too much right now." Her former boss's cold rejection. "We're restructuring." One by one, everyone she trusted had abandoned her when she needed them most. Amara's knees buckled as the weight of her isolation crashed over her. She was truly alone, with nowhere to go and no one to catch her fall. The storm soaked through her thin coat, but the cold outside couldn't compare to the ice spreading through her chest. Then she heard a deep, steady voice behind her. "Are you okay?" She turned, and through the blur of rain and tears she saw him, tall, sharply dressed, holding a black umbrella, with the kind of composure that suggested he'd never known what it meant to fall. His dark eyes held not pity, but recognition, as if he understood the language of abandonment. What Amara didn't know was that half the neighborhood knew exactly who he was: Minseok Han, one of the most feared men in Koreatown's underground world. Welcome to Korean Mafia lovers. Hey there, please drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe. Your support is essential for us to continue bringing you these emotional stories. Amara Lee had always been the dependable one, the friend who remembered birthdays, the daughter who called every Sunday, the girlfriend who gave more than she received. At 27, she had built what she thought was a stable life, a steady job as an administrative assistant at a marketing firm, a 2-year relationship with David, and a close bond with her older sister, Maya. But life doesn't warn you before it decides to test every foundation you've built. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday morning when her boss called her into his office with that particular expression that meant bad news. "Budget cuts," he said, not meeting her eyes. "We're eliminating your position effective immediately." 20 minutes later, she was walking out with a cardboard box and a severance check that wouldn't even cover next month's rent. David's reaction was worse than she'd expected. When she called him, voice shaking as she explained what happened, his response was a long sigh followed by, "Amara, I can't deal with this right now. I'm not signing up to carry someone who can't handle their own problems. You're too much." The line went dead. 3 days later, the eviction notice arrived. Her landlord, who had once been understanding about late payments, suddenly became unreachable. The walls of her small apartment seemed to close in as she realized how quickly everything could disappear. But the worst betrayal came from the person she thought would never abandon her. Maya lived in a beautiful house in Beverly Hills, married to a successful attorney, with 2 perfect children, and a life that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Amara had helped her through college, had been her maid of honor, had babysat her kids countless times without ever asking for anything in return. "I need somewhere to stay," Amara had said, standing on Maya's doorstep with her suitcase. "Just until I get back on my feet." Maya's expression had shifted from surprise to something that looked almost like disgust. "Amara, I can't have you bringing your drama into my home. My husband's partners might be here for dinner and I can't. I'm sorry, but you need to figure this out yourself." The door had closed with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot. Now, standing in the rain outside the cafe where she'd hoped to find comfort in familiar Korean food, one of the few luxuries she could still afford, Amara felt the last of her strength drain away. The storm had started just as Maya's words hit her, as if the universe was determined to make her misery complete. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. "Left your stuff with the doorman. Don't contact me again." Amara's legs gave out, and she sank onto a wet bench, no longer caring about the rain soaking through her clothes. She was 27 years old, college-educated, had worked since she was 16, and somehow she had ended up with absolutely nothing and no one. "Are you okay?" The voice was deep, calm, with just a hint of an accent that suggested English wasn't his first language. Amara looked up to see a man standing beside her bench, holding a large black umbrella that cast them both in shadow. He was tall, probably 6 feet, with the kind of sharp, handsome features that belonged in magazines. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite the weather, and he wore an expensive-looking black coat over what appeared to be a tailored suit. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. Dark, intelligent, and filled with something she hadn't seen in weeks, genuine concern. "I'm fine," she lied, her voice barely audible over the rain. He studied her for a moment, taking in her soaked clothes, her tear-stained face, the suitcase at her feet. "You're freezing," he observed, "and you're not fine." There was something about his tone, gentle but authoritative, that made her want to tell the truth. "No," she whispered. "I'm not." Without asking permission, he sat down beside her, adjusting the umbrella so it covered them both. The rain drummed against the fabric above their heads, creating a small pocket of relative quiet in the storm. "I'm Minseok," he said simply. "Minseok Han." Amara Lee. He nodded as if her name was important, worth remembering. "What happened, Amara?" Something about the way he said her name, carefully, respectfully, broke through the numbness that had been protecting her from the full weight of her situation. The words tumbled out. The job loss, David's abandonment, Maya's rejection, the eviction notice, the crushing realization that she had nowhere to go and no one to turn to. Minsok listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Your sister," he said finally, his voice carrying an edge she hadn't heard before. "She turned you away?" Amara nodded, fresh tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "And your boyfriend left you when you needed him most?" "Ex-boyfriend," she corrected weakly. Minsok's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I see." He stood up, extending his hand to her. "Come with me." Amara hesitated. She didn't know this man, didn't know why he was being kind to her when everyone else had turned away. But something in his steady gaze made her feel safer than she had in weeks. She took his hand. Minsok helped her to her feet, then guided her toward a sleek black SUV parked at the curb. The interior was warm and luxurious, with leather seats and the faint scent of expensive cologne. He handed her a soft towel from the glove compartment and turned up the heat. "Where are you staying tonight?" he asked as he pulled into traffic. I don't know. I was going to find a motel, I guess." "No," he said firmly. "You're not spending the night in some unsafe place." Amara turned to look at him, studying his profile in the glow of the streetlights. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Minsok was quiet for several blocks before answering. "Because I know what it's like to be abandoned by the people who should protect you," he said finally. "And because no one should have to face the storm alone." There was something in his voice, a pain that matched her own, that made her believe him. As they drove through the neon-lit streets of Koreatown, Amara felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. She had no idea that the man beside her was one of the most powerful and feared figures in Los Angeles's Korean underground, or that helping her would change both their lives forever. Minsok brought her to a small, elegant hotel in the heart of Koreatown, the kind of place that whispered luxury without shouting it. The lobby was all warm wood and soft lighting, with Korean art on the walls and the gentle sound of water flowing over stones. "I'll take care of the room," he said, approaching the front desk, where the clerk immediately straightened with obvious respect. "Mr. Han," the man said with a slight bow. "How can we help you tonight?" Amara watched the interaction with growing confusion. The level of deference the staff showed Minsok suggested he was more than just another wealthy businessman. There was something almost fearful in their eagerness to please him. "The penthouse suite," Minsok said quietly, "and please have some clothes sent up, women's size medium, something comfortable and warm." "Of course, sir, right away." Within minutes, Amara found herself in an elevator rising to the top floor, still trying to process what was happening. The suite was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a living room larger than her entire apartment had been, and a bedroom with a bed that looked like it belonged in a palace. "I can't afford this," she said, panic creeping into her voice. "You're not paying for it." Minsok replied, setting her suitcase down near the bedroom door. Consider it a gift from someone who understands what it means to start over. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Minseok answered it, accepting several shopping bags from hotel staff. "Clothes," he explained, handing them to her. "Take a hot shower, get warm, and try to rest. We'll figure out tomorrow when tomorrow comes." Amara stared at him, overwhelmed by his kindness. "Why are you doing this? Really?" Minsok moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. "When I was 15, my family lost everything," he said without turning around. "My father's business partner betrayed him, took everything we had built over generations. We went from living in a mansion to sleeping in our car in a matter of weeks." He paused, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. "I remember the night my mother tried to call her sister, my aunt who lived in a big house in Bel Air, who had always claimed to love us like her own children. She hung up on my mother, said she couldn't risk her reputation by associating with our situation." Amara's heart clenched at the pain in his voice. "That night a stranger helped us," Minsok continued. "An old Korean man who owned a small restaurant. He gave us a place to sleep, food to eat, and most importantly, he gave us dignity. He didn't make us feel like charity cases. He made us feel human." He turned to face her then, his dark eyes intense. "I swore that if I ever had the power to help someone the way he helped us, I would. Tonight that someone is you." Amara felt tears threatening again, but these were different, tears of gratitude rather than despair. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Minsok said with a slight smile. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we start rebuilding." After he left, Amara stood in the luxurious bathroom, staring at herself in the mirror. Her reflection looked like a stranger, hollow-eyed, defeated, lost. But for the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of something that might have been hope. The shower was hot and perfect, washing away not just the rain, but some of the despair that had been clinging to her skin. The clothes Minseok had ordered fit perfectly. Soft cashmere sweater, comfortable jeans, and undergarments that were clearly expensive but tasteful. As she settled into the impossibly comfortable bed, Amara found herself thinking about her mysterious benefactor. There had been something in the way the hotel staff treated him, something in the careful way he spoke about power and helping others. Minseok Han was clearly more than he appeared to be. But whatever secrets he carried, he had shown her more kindness in one evening than she had received from the people who claimed to love her in weeks of crisis. The next morning, Amara woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. She found Minsok in the living room, dressed in another perfectly tailored suit, reading something on his phone while a breakfast spread worthy of a five-star restaurant waited on the dining table. "Good morning," he said, looking up with a smile that transformed his serious features. "I hope you slept well." "Better than I have in weeks," she admitted, taking a seat across from him. "But I can't keep accepting your generosity. I need to find a job, find a place to live." "And you will," Minsok interrupted gently, "but not today. Today you recover. You remember who you are when you're not fighting just to survive." Over breakfast they talked. Amara found herself telling him about her dreams, how she had always wanted to work in event planning, but had settled for administrative work because it was safer, how she loved to cook, but had never had the confidence to pursue it professionally, how she had always been the one taking care of everyone else, and had forgotten how to take care of herself. Minseok listened with the kind of attention that made her feel like her words mattered. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "I have a proposition," he said finally. "I own several businesses, restaurants, hotels, event venues. I'm always in need of someone with organizational skills and an eye for detail. Would you be interested in working for me?" Amara's heart leaped, but caution held her back. "I don't want charity." "It wouldn't be charity," Minsok said firmly. "I've been looking for someone to coordinate events at my venues, someone who understands both the business side and the creative side. Based on what you've told me about your background and interests, you might be perfect for the position." He slid a business card across the table. "Think about it. If you're interested, come to this address tomorrow at 10. We'll discuss details." Amara looked at the card, heavy cardstock with elegant lettering that read Han Enterprises. and an address in downtown LA. What kind of events? Corporate functions, private parties, cultural celebrations, Minsok said. Nothing you couldn't handle, but everything that would challenge you to grow. As he stood to leave, Amara felt a strange reluctance to see him go. In less than 24 hours, this man had shown her more respect and consideration than she had received from people she'd known for years. Minsok, she called as he reached the door. Why me? Really? He turned back, his expression serious. Because when I look at you, I don't see someone who's broken. I see someone who's been broken by others, but refuses to stay down. That's rare, Amara, and it's valuable. After he left, Amara spent the day exploring the suite, thinking about his offer, and slowly beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't over yet. The Han Enterprises building was a sleek tower of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the Los Angeles sky. As Amara stood on the sidewalk looking up at it, she felt a mixture of excitement and intimidation that reminded her she was about to step into a world completely different from any she had known. The lobby was all marble and modern art, with security guards who looked more like Secret Service agents than typical building personnel. When she gave her name at the reception desk, the woman's demeanor immediately shifted to something approaching reverence. Miss Lee, of course, Mr. Han is expecting you. Please take the private elevator to the top floor. The elevator ride seemed to last forever, giving Amara time to second-guess her decision to come. What did she really know about Minseok Han? What kind of business required security guards who looked like they could stop bullets with their bare hands? The elevator opened directly into a reception area that was both elegant and intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while Korean art and modern furniture created an atmosphere of sophisticated power. Ms. Lee, a young woman approached with a respectful bow. I'm Sarah, Mr. Han's assistant. He's waiting for you in his office. Minsok's office was even more impressive than the reception area, a corner space with windows on two sides, a massive desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of dark wood, and seating areas that suggested important meetings happened here regularly. But what struck Amara most was how Minsok looked behind that desk. Gone was the gentle stranger who had rescued her from the rain. In his place sat a man who radiated authority and control, someone who clearly commanded respect and possibly fear. Amara, he said, standing as she entered. His smile was warm, but there was something different about him here, sharper, more dangerous. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the opportunity, she replied, suddenly feeling underdressed despite the professional outfit she had carefully chosen. They spent the first hour discussing the position, coordinating events for his various properties, managing vendors and timelines, ensuring that every detail met the exacting standards his clients expected. The salary he offered was more than she had made at her previous job, with benefits that seemed almost too good to be true. There's something you should know, Minsok said, as they concluded the business discussion. My enterprises operate in complex environments. Some of our clients value discretion above all else. Can you handle that? Amara studied his face, noting the careful way he had phrased the question. Are you asking if I can keep secrets? I'm asking if you can work in a world where not everything is as simple as it appears on the surface. There was a weight to his words that suggested layers of meaning she wasn't quite grasping. But looking at him, this man who had shown her kindness when she had nothing to offer in return, she found herself nodding. I can handle complex, she said. Minsok's smile was approving. Good. Sarah will show you to your office and introduce you to the team. Your first event is this Saturday, a private dinner for some very important clients. Consider it your trial by fire. Amara's office was smaller than Minsok's, but still impressive, with a view of downtown and everything she could need to coordinate events. Sarah introduced her to the team, a mix of young professionals who all seemed competent and slightly nervous around anyone connected to Minsok. A word of advice, Sarah said quietly as they finished the tour. Mr. Han values loyalty above everything else. Work hard, be honest, and never betray his trust. Do that, and you'll find him to be the best boss you've ever had. There was something in Sarah's tone that suggested the consequences of betraying that trust would be severe, but Amara pushed the thought aside. She had a job, a chance to rebuild her life, and an opportunity to work with someone who seemed to believe in her potential. The week flew by in a blur of vendor meetings, menu tastings, and logistics coordination. The private dinner was for 12 guests at Minsok's most exclusive restaurant, a place that didn't advertise and required personal recommendations for reservations. Amara threw herself into the work with an intensity that surprised her. Every detail had to be perfect: the flowers, the wine pairings, the timing of each course. She found herself staying late each night, determined to prove that Minsok's faith in her wasn't misplaced. On Friday evening, as she was finalizing the seating arrangements, Minsok appeared in her office doorway. "You're still here," he observed, leaning against the frame with his jacket off and his tie loosened. Even disheveled, he looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine. "Just making sure everything is perfect for tomorrow," Amara said, looking up from her notes. "I know how important this dinner is." Minsok entered the office, closing the door behind him. "It is important," he agreed, "but not more important than your health. When was the last time you ate?" Amara realized she couldn't remember. "I had coffee this morning." Minsok shook his head with what might have been fond exasperation. "Come on, I'm taking you to dinner. I really should finish. The work will be here tomorrow. You need food and rest." He led her to a small Korean restaurant a few blocks away, nothing like the upscale establishments he owned, but warm and welcoming in a way that spoke of family and tradition. The elderly woman who greeted them bowed deeply to Minsok and spoke to him in rapid Korean, her tone affectionate but respectful. "She's asking if you're my girlfriend," Minsok said with a slight smile as they were seated in a private booth. "I told her you're someone very important to me." Amara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You didn't have to—" "It wasn't a lie," Minsok said quietly, his dark eyes meeting hers across the table. "You are important to me, Amara, more than you know." The food was incredible. Dishes Amara had never tried before, each one more delicious than the last. Minsok explained each dish, sharing stories about his childhood and the foods his grandmother had made for him. "She used to say that food was love made visible," he said, watching Amara try a particularly spicy soup. "That when you cook for someone, you're giving them a piece of your heart." "Is that why you own restaurants?" Amara asked. Minsok's expression grew thoughtful. "Partly. Food brings people together, creates connections. In my world, connections are everything." There it was again, that hint of something deeper, more complex than the successful businessman he appeared to be. Amara was beginning to understand that Minseok Han operated in circles she couldn't quite see, wielding influence in ways she didn't fully comprehend. But as they talked through dinner, she also saw glimpses of the man who had rescued her from the rain, thoughtful, kind, carrying wounds that had shaped him into someone who understood the value of loyalty and the pain of betrayal. When he drove her back to her hotel, he had insisted she stay there until she found a permanent place. Amara felt a strange reluctance to say goodnight. "Thank you," she said as they sat in his car outside the hotel entrance. "For dinner, for the job, for everything. I know I keep saying it, but I don't know how else to express—" "Amara," Minsok interrupted gently. "You don't owe me gratitude. You've earned everything you have through your own hard work." He reached over and brushed a strand of hair from her face, the touch so gentle it made her breath catch. "Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a big day." As Amara watched his car disappear into the traffic, she realized that somewhere between the rain-soaked bench and this moment, her feelings for Minseok Han had shifted from gratitude to something much more dangerous. She was falling for a man whose world she didn't understand, whose secrets she couldn't fathom, and whose touch made her forget every reason she should be careful. Tomorrow's dinner would be more than just a professional test. It would be the beginning of her real education in the complex, dangerous world of the man who had chosen to save her. The private dinner was flawless. Every course arrived perfectly timed, every detail executed with precision that impressed even Minsok's most demanding clients. Amara watched from the kitchen, coordinating with the chef and servers, feeling a satisfaction she had never experienced in her previous job. But it was the conversation she overheard that changed everything. "Hansi," one of the guests said in accented English, "the shipment from Busan arrived safely. Your distribution network is impressive. Territory disputes in Long Beach are heating up," another added. "The Yakuza are pushing boundaries again. Let them push," came Minseok's calm reply. "They'll find our boundaries are made of steel." The words hit Amara like ice water. Distribution networks, territory disputes, Yakuza. The pieces of the puzzle she had been ignoring suddenly snapped into focus with terrifying clarity. Minseok Han wasn't just a successful businessman. He was exactly what the whispered rumors in Koreatown suggested, a powerful figure in the Korean Mafia, someone who controlled territory and commanded fear as much as respect. Amara's hands shook as she continued coordinating the dinner service, her mind reeling with the implications. The excessive security, the way people treated him with fearful deference, the carefully worded warnings about discretion, it all made sense now. She had fallen for a criminal. After the guests left, Amara was cleaning up in the kitchen when Minsok appeared in the doorway. He had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, looking relaxed and satisfied with the evening's success. "Perfect execution," he said, moving toward her with that smile that had once made her feel safe. "I knew you were the right person for this job." "What job exactly?" Amara asked, her voice sharper than she intended. "Event coordinator or accomplice?" Minsok stopped mid-step, his expression shifting to something more guarded. "What are you talking about?" "I heard the conversation, Minsok. Shipments from Busan, territory disputes, Yakuza." She set down the wine glass she had been holding, afraid her trembling hands would drop it. "What exactly am I working for?" For a long moment they stared at each other across the kitchen. Minseok's face was unreadable, but Amara could see him calculating, deciding how much truth to reveal. "You're working for me," he said finally. "Everything else is irrelevant." "Irrelevant?" Amara's voice rose. "You're involved in organized crime and you think that's irrelevant?" "What I am," Minsok said, his tone growing colder, "is someone who has given you a chance when no one else would. Someone who has treated you with respect and kindness. Does the rest really matter?" "Yes, it matters," Amara shot back. "It matters because I don't want to be part of something illegal. It matters because I thought I knew who you were, and now I find out you've been lying to me from the beginning." Minseok's jaw tightened. "I never lied to you. I simply didn't volunteer information that wasn't relevant to your position." "Not relevant? I'm coordinating events for criminals. You're coordinating events for businessmen who happen to operate in gray areas," Minsok corrected. "Nothing you've done is illegal, Amara. Nothing you've been asked to do compromises your integrity. But you're asking me to compromise my conscience." The words hung between them like a blade. Minseok's expression hardened into something that reminded Amara why people feared him. "Your conscience," he repeated slowly. "Tell me, where was your conscience when you needed help? When you were abandoned by everyone who claimed to care about you? Did your precious moral standards keep you warm in the rain?" The words hit their target with devastating accuracy. Amara felt tears sting her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "That's not fair." "Fair?" Minsok laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Nothing about this world is fair, Amara. I learned that when I watched my family lose everything to men who smiled while they destroyed us. I learned it when I had to build power from nothing, because it was the only way to protect the people I care about." He moved closer, his presence suddenly intimidating rather than comforting. "You want to judge me? Fine. But remember that the man you're judging is the same one who pulled you out of the storm when no one else cared enough to stop." "I can't do this," Amara whispered. "I can't be part of your world." "Then leave," Minsok said flatly. "Walk away. Go back to your safe, moral world where good people abandon you and bad people are the only ones who show you kindness." The dismissal in his voice was like a physical blow. Amara grabbed her purse and headed for the door, pausing only when she reached it. "I thought you were different," she said without turning around. "I thought you were someone I could trust." "I am someone you can trust," Minsok replied quietly. But trust and understanding are two different things. You're not ready to understand my world, Amara. Maybe you never will be. Amara left without another word, but she could feel his eyes on her until the elevator doors closed. The next few days passed in a blur of regret and confusion. Amara found herself in a cheap motel, using her savings to pay for a room while she searched for another job. But every interview felt hollow, every opportunity pale compared to the work she had been doing for Minsok. Worse, she couldn't stop thinking about him, about the pain in his voice when he talked about his family's betrayal, about the way he had looked at her in the restaurant when he said she was important to him, about the gentleness in his touch that seemed so at odds with the dangerous world he inhabited. On Thursday evening, as she sat in her depressing motel room scrolling through job listings, her phone rang. The number was unknown, but something made her answer. Amara Lee. The voice was unfamiliar, cold. Yes? You used to work for Han Minseok. It wasn't a question. Amara felt ice form in her stomach. Who is this? Someone who knows you have access to information we need. Han's schedule, his security protocols, his business meetings. I don't have that information, Amara said quickly, and I wouldn't give it to you if I did. You will, the voice said with chilling certainty. Because if you don't, we'll make sure everyone knows about your connection to Han's organization. Your sister with the perfect life, your ex-boyfriend with his new job. How do you think they'll react when they learn you've been working for the Korean Mafia? The line went dead. Amara stared at her phone, her hands shaking. Somehow, her attempt to escape Minsok's world had only pulled her deeper into it. And now she was trapped between loyalty to a man who had saved her and threats from people who could destroy what little she had left. As she sat in the gathering darkness, Amara realized that her choices had just become much more complicated and much more dangerous. The threatening call haunted Amara for 2 days. Every time her phone rang, every shadow that seemed to follow her, every stranger who looked at her twice, all of it fed the growing paranoia that she was being watched, hunted by people whose faces she couldn't see, but whose intentions were crystal clear. On Saturday evening, as she sat in a coffee shop trying to work up the courage to call Minsok and warn him about the threat, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Parking garage, level B3. Come alone, or your sister gets a very interesting phone call about your criminal associations. Amara's blood turned to ice. They had found Maya. The parking garage was dimly lit and nearly empty, the kind of place where screams would echo and no one would come running. Amara's footsteps seemed impossibly loud as she made her way to level B3, her heart hammering against her ribs. She found them waiting near the stairwell. 3 men in expensive suits who looked like they could break bones without wrinkling their clothes. The one in the center stepped forward, his smile cold and predatory. Ms. Lee, so good of you to come. What do you want? Amara asked, proud that her voice didn't shake. Information. Han's schedule for next week. Security details for his restaurants. Access codes for his buildings. I don't have that information anymore. I quit. The man's smile widened. But you could get it. A simple phone call, a request to meet, an opportunity to plant a listening device in his office. I won't betray him. Even when the alternative is destroying your sister's perfect life, her husband's law firm represents some very conservative clients. How do you think they'll react when they learn his wife's sister has been working for organized crime? Amara felt trapped, cornered by choices that would destroy either Minsok or Maya. Please, she whispered. I'll do anything else. I'll disappear. Leave the city. You'll do exactly what we tell you, the man interrupted. Or what? The voice came from behind the men, low and deadly calm. Amara's heart leaped as Minsok stepped out of the shadows, flanked by 2 men who made the threatening strangers look like children playing dress-up. Han, the leader said, his confidence faltering slightly. This doesn't concern you. Everything concerning her concerns me, Minsok replied, moving to stand beside Amara. His presence was like a shield, radiating controlled violence that made the air itself feel dangerous. She's not part of your organization anymore. She's under my protection, Minsok said flatly, which means touching her is the same as touching me. Are you prepared for that war? The men exchanged glances, clearly recalculating their position. The leader tried one more time. She has information we need. She has nothing you need, Minsok corrected. And if you approach her again, if you threaten her family, if you so much as breathe in her direction, I will personally ensure that you disappear so completely that your own mothers won't remember your names. The threat was delivered in the same calm tone he might use to order coffee, which somehow made it infinitely more terrifying. The men backed away, their bravado crumbling under the weight of Minseok's reputation. "This isn't over," the leader said, but he was already retreating. "Yes," Minsok said quietly, "it is." After they left, Amara found herself shaking with delayed shock and relief. "How did you know I was here?" "I've been having you watched since you left," Minsok admitted. "I knew someone would try to use you to get to me. I just didn't know who." "You've been having me followed?" "Protected," he corrected. "There's a difference." Amara stared at him, this man who had just threatened murder, with the same calm he used to discuss wine pairings. "Who were they?" "Competitors. People who think they can gain advantage by targeting those I care about. I'm not part of your world anymore." "You were never part of my world," Minseok said, stepping closer. "But you're part of my life. That makes you a target whether you want to be or not." The implications hit her like a physical blow. "So I can never be free of this, never have a normal life?" "Normal is overrated," Minsok said softly, "and freedom. Freedom is something you define for yourself." He reached out and gently touched her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "I'm sorry you were dragged into this. I'm sorry my world touched yours in ways that frightened you." "I was scared," Amara admitted. "Not of you, but of what loving you might cost me." "Loving me?" Minsok's voice was barely a whisper. Amara met his eyes, seeing past the dangerous reputation to the man who had held an umbrella over her in the rain. "Yes, loving you, despite everything I learned, despite the fear, despite knowing that your world is nothing like the safe life I thought I wanted." Minsok's control cracked, and she saw the vulnerability he kept hidden beneath layers of power and authority. "Amara, I choose you," she said, the words coming from somewhere deeper than logic or fear. "Not your world, not your business, not your reputation. You. The man who saw me when I was invisible, who gave me dignity when I had nothing left, who protected me even when I walked away." Minsok's hands framed her face, his touch reverent. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying," Amara replied. "I'm saying that I'd rather face danger with you than safety without you. I'm saying that I trust you with my life, even if I don't understand your choices." "My choices have consequences," Minsok warned. "People who love me become targets. They live with security details and bulletproof cars, and the constant knowledge that my enemies will use them to hurt me." "Then we'll face those consequences together," Amara said firmly. "Because the alternative, living without you, isn't really living at all." Minsok stared at her for a long moment, searching her face for any sign of doubt or fear. Finding none, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her with a desperation that spoke of weeks of regret and longing. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Minseok rested his forehead against hers. "I choose you too," he whispered. "Despite every reason I shouldn't, despite every danger it brings, despite knowing that loving you makes me vulnerable in ways I swore I'd never be again." "Then we're both crazy," Amara said with a shaky laugh. "Probably," Minsok agreed. "But I'd rather be crazy with you than sane without you." As they stood together in the dim parking garage, surrounded by the shadows of his world, but holding on to the light they had found in each other, Amara realized that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the only one worth making. She had been rejected at her lowest point by everyone she thought she could trust, but in the end it was the man everyone else feared who had chosen to love her exactly as she was. And that choice, dangerous, complicated, and absolutely terrifying, was the most beautiful gift she had ever received. 2 years later. The rooftop garden was Amara's favorite place in all of Minsok's properties, a hidden oasis above the city where vegetables grew alongside flowers, where the chaos of Los Angeles felt distant and manageable. She knelt among the tomato plants, her engagement ring catching the late afternoon sunlight as she worked. "The caterers want to confirm the menu for tomorrow's event," Sarah called from the doorway. holding a tablet and wearing the patient expression of someone who had learned to navigate Amara's perfectionist tendencies. "Tell them the Korean fusion menu is final," Amara replied, without looking up. "And remind them that Mr. Chen is allergic to shellfish." "Already noted. Also, your sister called. She wants to know if she can bring the kids to the office Christmas party next week." Amara smiled. Maya's relationship with her had transformed completely over the past 2 years, a combination of genuine remorse for her abandonment and healthy respect for Minsok's protective instincts. The children adored their Uncle Min, who spoiled them shamelessly and taught them Korean phrases that made their grandmother beam with pride. Of course she can bring them. Min loves showing off for his honorary niece and nephew. The sound of footsteps on the garden path made her look up. Minsok was walking toward her, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder and his tie loosened after a long day of meetings. Even after 2 years, the sight of him still made her heart skip. "How was the meeting with the City Planning Commission?" she asked, standing and brushing dirt from her hands. "Productive. The new restaurant will break ground next month." He pulled her into his arms, not caring about the garden soil on her clothes. "How was your day?" 3 events, 2 vendor meetings, and 1 very successful negotiation with the flower supplier. Amara settled into his embrace, feeling the tension of the day melt away. "Also, David called." Minsok's arms tightened slightly around her. "What did he want?" "To apologize. Again. And to ask if we might consider hiring his event planning company for corporate functions." "What did you tell him?" "That we're very happy with our current arrangements," Amara said diplomatically. He's still trying to process the fact that the woman he abandoned for being too much is now running a multi-million-dollar event coordination business. "His loss," Minsok said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Speaking of which, the mayor's office called. They want us to coordinate the cultural festival next spring." "The whole festival?" Amara pulled back to look at him, excitement sparkling in her eyes. "That's huge, Min. It would establish us as the premier event company in the city." "It would also put you in the spotlight," Minsok warned gently. "Are you ready for that level of visibility?" It was a conversation they'd had many times over the past 2 years. Amara's business had grown exponentially under Minsok's protection and guidance, but success in their world always came with increased scrutiny. She had learned to navigate the complex balance between legitimate business and the shadowy connections that made their empire possible. "I'm ready," she said confidently. "We've built something real here, something that stands on its own merit. Let them look as closely as they want." Minsok smiled, pride evident in his expression. "Then we'll take the contract." As the sun set over the city, they stood together in their garden sanctuary, planning futures that once seemed impossible. Amara had learned that love wasn't about finding someone who fit into your safe, predictable world. It was about finding someone worth building a new world with, even when that world was complicated and dangerous and absolutely nothing like what you had planned. She had been rejected at her lowest point, abandoned by people who should have protected her. But in the end, it was the man everyone else feared who had chosen to love her, protect her, and build a life with her that was richer and more meaningful than any safe alternative could have been. Some love stories begin with fairy tale meetings. Theirs had begun in the rain, with rejection and desperation, and 2 broken people who chose to heal together. And that, Amara thought as Minsok spun her around in their garden, while the city lights began to twinkle below, was the most beautiful beginning of all. Thank you for staying until the end. Korean Mafia Lovers has many more incredible stories. Hit subscribe because with your help, we keep creating these emotional journeys.